button. I did it. There we go.
Welcome to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
I'm Rob. Let's get that show on the road.
Oh, yes.
Talking about some fun times.
Yes. It is time to talk about a matchup coming up that we have here against one of the worst franchises, at least in the last 50 years in NFL history. They started off well, and then other teams came around that hurt their chances.
Hope you're not talking about our team.
No, say the Browns. The Browns.
The Juju Bowl.
Oh, yes, the Browns. Yes. Taco Bell, maybe the only way to get the Browns to Super Bowl. So, yeah, we got a preview episode here for you guys. We're also going to go over some new news. We got two new players. Two. Not goofballs, but two new players.
Those.
And we got some Giants news. According to someone, Dable's going to jump off a bridge, apparently. So that's not good. We'll go over all kinds of crazy stuff here. So I know. Yeah. The person who said it's kind of crazy. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get...
We're then the bridge together?
I don't think we're into the bridge together now. I don't think that's...
No, not. Yeah.
No, probably not. So let's get right into it, guys. First off, we got to talk about the fact that we had somebody obviously get injured last week, and it requires us now to get a new kicker. So we actually have a kicker this week, unlike last week. So guess what? The Giants signed a new kicker. It's about time. It's about a week too late there. Probably should have done it before the game. So they signed Greg Joseph off of the Lions practice squad. Interesting enough, born in Johannesburg, South Africa. Not many times you hear about South African players in the NFL. 30 years old, originally an undrafted rookie free agent from Florida Atlantic back in 2018. He's best known for being the Vikings kicker from 21 to 23. That does include, by the way, kicking the game-winning field goal against us Christmas Eve in 22. So if the name sounds familiar to you guys somewhat, that might be why. He's also, part of that, spent 4 games with the Browns in 18 and 2 games with the Titans in 19. He's also spent time with the Dolphins during the 18 offseason, the Panthers, part of their practice squad in 19, Buccaneers practice squad in 2020, and Packers squad this offseason as well before the Lions signed with their practice squad there. So he's been around a little. He's got one of those fringe NFL players, not good enough to be the top 32 kickers in the NFL, but good enough to be the top 40. Probably around.
Which, when you're looking for your backup kicker, it's not the worst spot to be in.
Yeah, I guess we could do worse. That's for sure. 82.6 accuracy on his career for field goals, with 90.1% accuracy on point afters. So yeah, not great, guys. But again, great's not going to walk in the streets in mid September. If you're expecting a great kicker, then we're giving yourself unreasonable expectations. This is like that show on Mad TV, that segment on Mad TV. Lowered expectation. Man. I used to love that show back in the day. It was so good. Before signing Joseph, they also worked out Randy Bullock, Zan Gonzalez, Riley Patterson, and, of course, our practice squad kicker, whose name I can never pronounce, Jude McAtamney. Hopefully I pronounced that right.
Jude.
I can never do it. Hey, Jude, you didn't make the squad.
Go kick yourself better somewhere else.
By the way, I should comment. This kind of solidifies what I said when we talked about the kickers and Jude back on our last episode there. We had a chance. We needed a kicker. We still didn't take the kicker from our own practice squad. What does that tell you? The only reason he's on the practice squad is because he has an international exemption at that point. If it wasn't for that, he would not be on our practice squad. The guy couldn't even hold his damn job at Rutgers. So, yeah. So, like I said, at least we have a kicker for this week. That's kind of an important thing to have. Yeah. And hopefully, we don't need him except for extra points and one kickoff, but, we'll see what happens. We also got another player here, another new Giant here. Ooh, making swaps here, making changes. Giants signed Patrick Johnson from the Philadelphia Beagles here. So played at Tulane, was a 7th round draft pick back in 2021. 6'2", 248 pounds, 26 years old. Was waived by the Eagles, ironically enough, to allow them a roster spot to elevate Nick Gates, former Giant, from their practice squad at that point. 49 games in his career, 2 starts, 35 tackles, 3 QB hits, and 1 forced fumble and 1 fumble recovery. So not exactly a guy to go right home about. Not going to try to make him seem like a big, I think he is. He was originally listed as a defensive end his first 2 seasons, and Johnson has flashed some abilities as a pass rusher, according to Brandon Lee Gouton of Bleeding Green Nation. He's the 3rd most tackles last season on the Eagles for special teams. So he's got some special team ability. That's where he mostly played his time there. So he had 324 defensive snaps his first 2 seasons, but just 38 last year, and didn't have a single defensive snap in week 1 when he was on the Eagles roster still. So, not a guy I expect to see on defense itself much there. I did go back to his Bleacher Report draft profile there from back in 21. They report him as having a great get-off and having violent, active hands, but also he wasn't very good against the run, and his size would be an issue. It seems like he's kind of like in between. He plays like a 4-3 defensive end, but he has the size of a 3-4 defensive end. So doesn't really fit either scheme perfectly. What's interesting, though, is good get-off, active hands. Those are things you need on special teams. Explains the role he's been having with the Eagles there. I would expect him to be just that. He's going to be a special team contributor. Keep in mind Carter Coughlin and Matthew Adams, who are supposed to be our big dual-headed monster there in special teams for special teams tackles there, are both out with injuries right now. So he's going to replace the production, hopefully, of one of them. Probably not be quite as good as those guys there, but listen, it sounds weird to say the 3rd most as if that's a good thing on the Eagles there, but the Eagles did have a good special teams crew last year, so that was one of the better coverage teams in the entire NFL. So I'll take that as at least a temporary spot. That's where it'll probably be. It'll be a temporary guy until these guys get back, and then we'll probably either prop him onto the practice squad, or we'll go ahead and at that point it'll be cut. We'll see which one happens there, but like I said, at least for a temporary move, not a bad move, and I'll take it there.
Yep.
We didn't just steal from the Eagles, though. We've also stolen from the Cowboys. This one's a draft pick. So the Giants get the Cowboys draft pick here. So remember a couple weeks ago we did a trade. We sent defensive tackle Jordan Phillips to the Cowboys right towards the end of training camp there. And the return for him was conditional based on him earning playing time. So he's now played in both the first 2 games for the Cowboys. So that condition has been met. So the Cowboys are giving the Giants their 6th round pick in 26, and we're giving them our 7th round pick. So basically moved up 1 round at the very back end of not next year's draft, but the year after. So I wouldn't call that an amazing return, but we got something for somebody who would have otherwise probably cut. And considering how bad the Giants' run defense is, people have been kind of questioning the trade. Should we have really given up Phillips, one of the rare veterans we had in that defensive line? Yeah. So Cowboys so far have only played him in 34 snaps, guys. 2 games, 1 tackle. He's showing a 29.6 PFF grade currently for the season. Yeah. Not very good.
No, so good.
Not very good. Yeah. I mean, he was practicing with our 3rd team on defense there. That's how low in the totem pole he was for us, guys. I mean, it's like that's really not a great grade there. Not a great showing overall for the start of the season. But let's be honest, he hasn't been as good the last couple of years. That's why we got rid of him. So I would say, even though the returns we got for him weren't very great, getting something for a guy you were going to cut anyway is something. That's
100%.
definitely something. I'll take it.
Hey, listen, if you're ever walking by a trash can and you're just going to throw out some garbage and someone goes, "Hey, here's $5," you gotta take it. Like, that's it. This guy's worth $5, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
you got something that you were going to get nothing for in a week if you waited. So, like I said, you can't hate the trade. I do hate the fact that we traded with the Cowboys still to a certain degree, but he's not actually helping them. So it's not we went too crazy there. So, all right. Before we get into our next topic here, we have a new resident troll, it seems. CM Bell has a go, and he says, Giants fans still have a following? You guys have got to know a ton of football, everything. Listen, it could be worse. We could be the Panthers. I don't know.
Touche.
We could be the Panthers. And he says, how much is Daniel's cap hit next year? Well, it's going to be about $19 million if we're to cut him at that point. Only pay half we would otherwise, so it won't be that bad. Let's get into our next topic here. And we got to talk about a guy who has been synonymous with New York media in sports since basically we were babies. One of the original OGs of talk radio for sports here. And that's Mike Francesco, who said that Dable wants to jump off a bridge. That's a little harsh.
Yeah.
That's just definitely a little harsh there. Here's what he said. He said, I'll tell you something. When I see Dable now, I don't see a coach who's had a little glint in his eyes and a little swagger in his first year. I see a guy who wants to jump off a bridge. And I see a guy who just wants to give you short answers. You can tell he's up to here with all of it. And he knows he's looking down the barrel at a long season. Yeah. I mean, I agree with some of what he's saying. I definitely think he's frustrated. I think the jumping off a bridge reference is a little extreme considering why people do that. I don't think he's like medically depressed or anything like that over what's going on. I hope not, at least.
If you are able, seek better help. Come on, Giants Goofballs.
Seriously. But that's part of what he says makes you wonder, like, is Dable, like, because he's been acting a lot calmer lately, at least in public, except for obviously at the end of last week when he threw his heads on the ground and flipped out. But, like, you haven't seen him flipping out in the sidelines like you used to. Everybody talked about him being a nicer Dable during the training camp. Like, has he lost a little bit of something that made him maybe? Like, some people got to be a certain way. You try to change who you are, and it changes more than what you intended to change sometimes.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, Brian Dibble, when he came here, like, he looked kind of cheery. Like, let's be honest. He kind of looked a little cheery when he came in. Like, yes, he had that aggressiveness to him, but he got way over the top last year, and there's some players who got upset about it. Some coaches have got upset about it. Allegedly. But, I mean, dude lost, 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds? I don't know. But load of weight.
That's what John said here in the comment section. He said, did seem happier when he was fat like me. I mean, maybe that's what it is. Somebody needs to throw that man a sandwich.
I was going to say, when was the last time he had a carb?
Yeah, maybe that's probably. Listen, he lost a lot of weight. He looks extremely healthy. Good for him. Like, I don't want to belittle that, but we're kind of gonna.
But actually, we really can't, because like you're talking about, like, he doesn't look that upset a lot of time. Like, he looks a little monotoned.
Is that the passion though?
Last year would have been the guy, like, throw the guy a piece of bacon, throw the guy a bagel, throw the guy some bread, throw him whatever, because he was getting upset. He just looks a little different now. Maybe throw him a Prozac.
Yeah, I don't know. Something definitely changed. That's for sure. I don't know what changed exactly. Like, maybe something going on in his personal life. I don't know. Like, something's going on. I just feel like he doesn't seem to have the same quite fire. I'll give it to Francesco on that. He's right on that. He doesn't seem to have quite that same fire. But I think that's a little extreme to bring the analogy he brought into that. That's for damn sure. Like that's a very extreme take, I think. And listen, people do this all the time when they do sports talk, where they hyperbolize to the point of saying something absolutely insane just to get views. I mean, hell, we're talking about it, and that's the specific part we're now talking about. Pretty much is him saying that he looks he's going to jump off a bridge, but it's like, so it gets him out there. That's for sure. But I don't know. I just feel like something's missing. And Deb says too, didn't he take some heat last year for his fire? And that's part of it.
He did. I was literally going to bring that up. Like, hey, he was.
I know.
Oh, I'm not even looking at the notes because mine are up to date. So, winging it. No, but I mean, you look at year one, right? Everyone's happy. It doesn't matter what he did year one because we went to the playoffs. We won a playoff game.
Yep.
Year two, he brings off the same heat, but doesn't get as far. Now it's a problem because we don't win games. And he's also a little more angry because, let's face it, we're not winning games.
It's a problem because people were complaining last year. Let's be honest in that. It's not because we weren't winning games. People are like, oh my God, the Giants are winning, and that coach is mean. Like, that's not what people are saying. People are saying they're not winning games. That sucks. But look over here. You got assistants leaving left and right and complaining that their boss is being abusive. Because that's what the complaint was, basically. And last year, coaching-wise, I've said it before in the show, and I'll say it again. I think he did a really good job with the team overall last year because of the fact that this team had nothing to play for, had injuries left and right.
And they played
guys coming off the couch, and they were still fighting to the end of the year.
Yeah.
He can't control what players are on the roster. That's Joe Shane's job. I mean, he has input, obviously, but in the end, it's Joe Shane's job. But the final product based on what you have on the team is his job. And while the wins weren't there, the team was playing hard. The team was playing hard for what they had at that point. We went through all quarterbacks getting injured at one point. We had how many kickers we have last year, sore subject, I know. We had
especially after this
linemen everywhere going out the entire year. Saquon was out for a few games. I mean, you had so many damn injuries last year, and that team was still fighting. But he showed fire last year still. There's no fire in him right now. Francesca's not wrong in that part of it. There's not the same fire. And listen, you can't wait till the very end and throw your headset. That doesn't count. I need you during the game pumping these guys up and get them going. And I'm sure he's still saying things to them. I'm still sure he is. But in the end, he's got to also get them pumped up during the game and get them fearful because sometimes, listen, nobody likes to admit it, but sometimes the boss that you're afraid of is the one you work best for. Different personalities work differently for different people. Like, if a boss is a jerk to me, it makes me want to walk out and quit. I know other people that I've worked with in the past that you push them, that's when you get the best from them. You push me out the door. It's different personalities get different reactions, obviously. But maybe that's what it is. Maybe he has some people he's not pushing, he needs to.
Could be. I mean, he's also got, a lot of the teams newer this year compared to when he first came in. To a point, he's learned how to deal with some of the players out there. Like, are some of the newer guys do they need to be pushed around a little bit when the guys that stayed need to be coddled a little bit? Like, I don't know how to justify it. I'm not a coach in that room.
That's the problem.
I've been a coach in different rooms, and you're 100% right. Like, there's times when you need to literally push the guy. There's some people you need to tell them, like, hey, you suck today.
Yep.
And that's the motivation for them to come back the next week to be, oh, I suck today. I'm going to show you next week I'm going to be the best.
Yep. Little known fact, Bob was actually my Lamaze coach.
I was. We pushed out that turd so hard.
Whoa. That took a nasty turn. Like I said, I want to see what's going on behind the scenes a little to find out. And that's the problem, is I'm not going to see that. So I don't have any way of knowing that stuff. All we can do is guess. And I think something is going on behind the scenes. I will say this. During Hard Knocks, I don't think he looked very happy with the prospect of bringing DJ back.
No.
And I think that's part of this. Like, you could be the best of buddies with Shane, but if you don't agree with what he's doing, there's going to be times when it's going to come out. And I think he's probably on the same side of what we said, that Shane needed to bring in some competition for Jones. Drew Lock was not competition. Tommy DeVito was not competition. I mean, let's be honest, they wanted to bring Tyrod Taylor back. That's what they wanted to do. Should have gone out and gotten Gardner Minshew. That's what they should have gotten. If you weren't going to draft someone, you should have got out and got Gardner Minshew. And you had to have known going into this draft that you were not taking the big three. You were not going to go ahead and trade with the Bears for Caleb Williams. That wasn't an option. Thank God. You weren't going to go and trade with the Commanders for Jaden Daniels. They're never going to trade it within their division. That would have been like a death sentence for the GM at that point to trade away a potential,
especially brand new GM.
Yeah, the death sentence for his career. You already knew by talking to the Patriots, they weren't really that interested in trading the pick. You have to blow them away. So if your plan was not to get one of those three,
hey, listen, Shane's a family man. Like, we saw it in the Hard Knocks. He was not about to do that.
But it's like, if your plan was to continue with Daniel Jones, and you weren't going to bring Michael Penix into the building, because we didn't see that when they brought the other ones in, you brought in J.J. McCarthy. You didn't bring Bo Nixon. You didn't bring Michael Penix in. I just feel like there was a malpractice at that position this offseason. And you saw the frustration in Dable's face when he talked about it. You really did, I think. And he tried to hide it, but let's be honest, he's a hothead. He can't hide things. And I'm wondering if that's part of it.
So you think you're just kind of like in there in this eternal sunshine of the spotless spine, just like, this is what the season is. This is what's going on. Is that what you're saying?
You can't put your arms up like this, by the way, Rob, right now, because you have a ceiling fan light right above your head. It looks like a halo.
I know, because
it's very angelic, like one of those pictures in the back of the Bible.
Giants, please play better next week.
But yeah, like I said, we'll have to keep an eye and see what happens. I'm curious to see if his attitude changes, if his demeanor changes on the sidelines here going forward, because something's got to give. Something's got to. Plus, we need to also make sure we have a kicker each week. Call me crazy.
Yeah, nuts.
Crazy suggestions there. Let's talk about a guy who did succeed with the Giants. Eli Manning. Is he headed to the Hall of Fame, guys? Is he? Is he going? Because he's officially been nominated today for the Hall of Fame.
Ooh.
Now, when I say that I was, he was nominated for the Hall of Fame, there's 167 players that are nominated. So, yeah, not exactly, a small batch of people there, guys. But there's a lot of guys that, let's be very honest, will nowhere near sniff the Hall of Fame. They're in there. Like Jeff Garcia is on the list. I'm going to use that as a name. Jeff Garcia is not going to the Hall of Fame. I think that's pretty safe to say.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that?
Something tells me. So obviously,
are you sure about that?
There's a lot of people on the list that aren't going to make it in, but there's 7 Giants overall. Actually, I'm sorry, I said 8 because the Giants listed 7. I found number 8. Even the Giants didn't have this guy on the list. I'm an ex-Giants. Hashtag once a Giant, always a Giant. So we got running back Tiki Barber, who freaking should be in the goddamn Hall of Fame. That's an absolute travesty. He's not in the Hall of Fame, guys.
Yep.
Go look at his stats and tell me this man should not be in the Hall of Fame. He basically had the same career averages as Marshall Faulk and just had 2 years less of playing. Should be in the Hall of Fame. Especially because if he kept playing, he would have crushed Marshall Faulk's numbers eventually. His better years were his latter years. Tight end Jeremy Shockey. Definitely not getting in.
No.
Chris Snee, guard and son of a ball.
Guard.
Tom Coughlin there. Defensive end Justin Tuck. Linebacker Jesse Armstead. It's like one of the very few good Giants from the 90s before we got Kerry Collins. He was a freaking good player. People forget how good he was. Safety, Antoine Bethea, who's the one that they forgot to put on the list, who did play his last year with us in the Giants there. 1 year. Still a Giant. Punter, Jeff Fiegels. And punter, Sean Landetta. Other first-time nominees. Marshawn Lynch, sorry. Darren Sproles. Demarius Thomas. Vernon Davis. Travis Frederick. Marshall Yonda. Luke Kuechly. Terrell Suggs. Antoine Bethea, who I mentioned earlier. Aqib Talib. Earl Thomas. And Adam Vinatieri. So the next step is mid-October, guys. They're going to go ahead and reduce the nominees down to 50. Then they'll have another meeting later on, get down to 25. Have another meeting later on, get down to 15. And then from that 15, 3 to 5 players will be inducted as part of the 2025 class. Now, Eli deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. No doubt about that. Sorry. People can say, oh, you want, but take out the Super Bowls and he wouldn't be in there. I don't give a damn. It's part of his career. It's part of his resume. He deserves to be in. You know, the longevity, the career stats he has. I obviously know the winning record wasn't there, but that's not his fault. The Giants messed up the last 5 years of his career.
I was to say.
So I do think most people would put him in the Hall of Fame. And I do think he'll get in the Hall of Fame. The question is, will he be blocked from being a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is considered like an additional honor, basically, in the eyes of some. But the class doesn't have a lot of big new names, guys, and that really could help Eli, I think. I mean, look at the list I gave you of the first-time people. Marshawn Lynch, not a Hall of Famer. Hall of Very Good. Darren Sproles, definitely not a Hall of Famer. Demarius Thomas. I mean, I think, again, the guy goes in the Hall of Very Good, probably. Vernon Davis doesn't get in. Frederick and Yonda, I mean, you got to be like excellent to get in as offensive lineman. That's like very, very rare, you know? Luke Kuechly probably would get in. I can see him getting in. Terrell Suggs, I can definitely see him getting in. Antoine Bethea, Aqib Talib, Earl Thomas. I don't know about that. Adam Vinatieri should be in, but you know they hate kickers. This is the way the NFL is. For some reason, the Hall of Fame, they just hate kickers. So, you know, he's got a chance. If I had to put my money on the two names in that crew, would be be Kuechly and Suggs getting in. So you figure if you add 2 more from that list, maybe one person gets in that didn't get in previously or something. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he gets in. I hope he does. If that's the case, I think Rob and I should do a trip to Ohio. Ohio. Because that means the Giants would probably next year be in the Hall of Fame game too. So that'd be something fun. We do the Hall of Fame game, see Eli get into the Hall. That'd be fun. That'd be fun.
Fantastic.
Plus, we can use it as one big tax expense.
Thank you, goofballs out there.
Oh, yes. All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and get into the Giants at Browns preview here. Before we do that, if you guys really want to keep up to date on everything going on with the New York Football Giants, guys, hit that subscribe button because we are multiple shows per week there. We have multiple videos going up per day at that point there. So we got tons and tons of Giants content for you guys. If you haven't already, do me a favor. Also hit that thumbs up button. That really helps spread this out to all of the people on YouTube there. Google really likes when people hit that button there. If you're on YouTube there, let's go ahead and pay the bills real quick, and then we're going to get into the Giants at Browns preview.
Enjoying the show? Looking for more goofball action? Consider a membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Memberships start at just $5 and give you additional goofball access. One-time support payments also available starting at just $3. buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.
All righty, guys. Let's get into that preview here. So it's week 3 now. One thing for me at least, it's more fun for us to do previews now in week 3 going forward at that point because we have some knowledge now on who we're playing.
Better understand.
Yeah, because the first 2 weeks you don't really know what you got. You got a couple games now we can see. Like we now know the Giants not very good. Let's be honest, they're not very good. But we also have a better idea who we're playing. So let's preview the game by starting off going over what the Browns did the first 2 games. Because it hasn't been a great first 2 games to them either, guys. So first one, they lost to the Cowboys 33-17. This game, if you went based on just the stats alone, you would have thought this game was close. Dak Prescott only threw for 179 yards. CeeDee Lamb was held to 61 yards receiving. Brandon Cooks had only 40 yards receiving. Ezekiel Elliott led them with only 40 yards rushing. I wouldn't say that's an offensive juggernaut, a 33-point kind of game. No other skilled player, guys, had more than 26 yards of production in that game. That's bad. And the Cowboys, like I said, they barely beat him out in almost every important metric, except for a few. They did not get a few of them there. So first one they didn't get was interceptions, turnovers. So Deshaun Watson threw 2 turnovers in that game, threw 2 interceptions in that game, guys. It's hard to win when you're throwing multiple picks in a game. It really is. As a Giants fan, we know. The Browns also allowed the offense to keep getting close enough to score field goals on a regular basis. Brandon Aubrey was 4 for 4 on field goals, including a 57-yarder, guys. That's a decent kick there. The Browns also gave up 6 sacks, including 2 each to DeMarcus Lawrence and Eric Kendricks. And the Cowboys defense also held the Browns to success on just 2 of 15 third down attempts. It's hard to win when you're giving up sacks, throwing the ball to the wrong team, and your quarterback can't stay on his feet.
It's hard to win when your starting quarterback look like garbage for the past couple of years and you paid him stupid amount of money that's guaranteed every year, and your 4th-string quarterback looks way better down the stretch when you picked him off the couch eating potato chips.
100%. 100%. Now, Browns last week, they beat the Jaguars 18-13. So the defense held the Jaguars down much better. Offense still struggled, but it was just enough to win. This time, the Browns kicker, Dustin Hopkins, had 3 field goals. The line gave up just 2 sacks instead of the 6 the prior week, and no interceptions were thrown. That's what it boils down to, guys. That's the way they're going to win. Is if they can go ahead and get a very, very, solid game at that point there. Give me 1 second here. We're going to put a user in timeout here for somebody making all kinds of accusations here. But yeah, so that's what they're going to win. They win by doing solid on defense and playing smart football. Kind of like the Giants. Like, it's not an offensive juggernaut. They're not going to win that way, by just going to a huge throw up 30 points kind of thing. They don't have the offense to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see how these teams match up.
Which is crazy because, when they decided to sign Watson, they took that with the confidence that they're signing this guy that's going to throw you 3 to 4 touchdowns every game. And yeah, he'd be lucky to do that for you every 3 games.
It's like I said, this is going to be This is going to be a weird game, I think, guys. If you're looking for the offensive juggernaut game, this is definitely not going to be the one for you. It's going to be an interesting game overall. Let's get into the offense for the Browns. Let's go over what they've been doing on offense there, because this was an offense you expected big things of. I mean, obviously Nick Chubb. You already know what you got with Nick Chubb there. He's
a guy that's coming back off a heinous injury that's not playing. Yeah.
Well, but if he was playing and hadn't had that big injury, then he would have been somebody you would have probably been impressed by at that point.
Yeah,
because he was.
I think he's coming back. What, week 6 at this point?
They don't know. They really don't know.
I think he's scheduled.
He get after 4 weeks, he's allowed to get back off the injured reserve, because they put him on the initial one where they can take him back off again. But they don't know. That guy, listen, that guy can never play football again. It wouldn't shock me. I know he's planning on playing football, but it would not shock me.
He's young enough, but watching an injury, like I looked at when
he got Joe Theismann on national TV, guys. So, but they had him going into it. They had Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper. They got Jerry Jeudy this offseason. They got David Njoku. I mean, they got offensive weapons at that point, and they had one of the best offensive lines the last couple of years as well. And it's just to me, it's not a situation where I look at this now and say, okay, this is what we expected of this offense. This is much worse than I think people expected out of this offense. That's for sure. So here's what they got so far. The biggest issues they had so far is they're 4 of 29 on third down attempts so far this season, guys. 4 of 29. That's not going to cut it for any offense in the NFL, guys. 8 sacks they have allowed in 2 games. We mentioned the 6 they had in the first week. They had 2 more last week at that point. A lot of that is because they got a lot of injuries on their offensive line. Week to week, they have no clue who's going to be there. They got 3 main tackles that they like. And all 3 of them are battling injuries. And they've had to maneuver kind of around at that point because of that. Now, also throw in the fact that they lost Callahan, who is one of the best, if not the best, offensive line coaches in the entire NFL, because he left for the Titans because he wanted to go be the offensive line coach for his son. Which I should say, by the way, kudos to the Browns, though, for releasing him and letting him do that. Like, that really is a amazing thing to be able to go ahead and do, guys. Like, I don't think most teams would do that. I think most people are like, no, you got to work your contract. You signed an extension last year. You're stuck with us now. I can't say I would do that. You have one of the best offensive line coaches in all of football. Why would you want to give him up? You signed him for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, you can put it as the Bears being the Bears, just making boneheaded decisions all the time, or you can just be like maybe the
Browns.
As much the Browns, sorry, I said the Bears 3 times now, but I'm sorry, that B word's interchangeable. Browns, Bears, they've made bonehead decisions constantly for the past 2 decades. It's very easy to, Anyway, but you give kudos to the Browns, like you said, organization. Like, hey, maybe we're a family organization. We get it. Your son's got this new head coach's job. Go be, what you do for your son. Be a leader for your son.
Yeah.
It's very easily they could have been more like the Patriots, most likely, and be like, yo, no, you're signed. You're stuck with us.
Most teams would have done it. I really don't think most teams would have done it. I mean, again, this is one of the best offensive line coaches, if not the best, in the entire NFL. So, but it was a classy move. So I'll give him credit for the classiness part of it, even though I myself would not have done it, point blank. Deshaun Watson on the season, guys. 58.2 completion percentage, 355 yards in 2 games, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. If that's not Daniel Jones kind of numbers, I don't know what is.
I'm saying, does DJ have better numbers than that?
Seriously, like I have to look it up. That's not good, guys. That's not good. This Deshaun Watson trade, and you kind of alluded to before, end up being the worst trade in all of NFL history. Like, it's right up there with the Herschel Walker trade at that point, with Walker going to Minnesota and the Cowboys getting all the draft picks that end up being their 90 Super Bowl run. I mean, it's crazy. Besides all the allegations and everything. I mean, we had what initially was 26, 28 women came forward against him. And now I'm hearing another second group of women are now coming forward as well. There's more allegations, of course. it's not even about all the picks they gave up. It's about the money and what they've gotten in return for it, because he's been absolutely horrible. He's in his third season with them now. His contract was not just fully guaranteed, guys, but it was backloaded. He's going to cost the team against the cap $72.9 million in both 25 and 26. We complained about DJ. It's $40 million. $72.9 million, guys. That's a freaking schnikey load of money.
Oh, yeah.
To put it nicely, schnikey load of money. And they can't even cut him because it's a guaranteed contract. If they went to cut him next year, hypothetically, it would cost them $172 million against the cap, guys. For the record, the cap this year is $255.4 million. So you're talking more than half the cap space would be just gone with no player. That's insanity. Absolutely insanity, guys. But the biggest issue right now for the Browns is even him. They were counting on someone who has kind of disappeared, and it's a mystery. I was actually listening this morning while I was doing some work here at home to a couple of Browns podcasts here to see what's going on with them. So Amari Cooper, that's the big one right now. They're trying to figure out. 5 catches, 27 yards. That wasn't in one game. That's both games. Guy had 1,250 yards last season. He's had over 1,100 yards 4 of the last 5 seasons. He's also averaging his 5.4 yards per reception when he averages 14.2 yards per reception for his career. I get it. It's 2 games. Like, I'm not trying to say he's done. But
if you want to show a third of what you've done your whole career, you're doing a pretty good job.
It's not even a third. That's not even a third. He'd be averaging less than 200 yards a season if they continued. That's insanity, guys. Like, that's a huge drop. Now, one podcast went into a lot of depth into what they thought it was. So they're wondering if it's just the issue with him and Watson not communicating correctly at that point. I'm wondering my own if it's Watson not being able to stay in the pocket long enough to get the deep threat going at that point, because, again, sacked 6 times the first week. I mean, that's, even the 2 the second week. That's a lot of sacks as well for, but 6, that's like Giants numbers. That's like Giants last year numbers. Like, that's really bad. So, if he can't stay upright long enough, it's hard for him to get. Talking again, 15 yards per reception. That tells you that Amari Cooper is not a yak guy. He's a guy who's going to get the ball. If he can get some extra yards afterwards, run at the house, great. I mean, obviously he's not going to turn it down, but he's more the guy who gets the deep ball and is done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
catch and
he's got a 14.2 yard per reception. I'm sure this catch point is probably 10 yards, 8 to 10 yards down the field for the most of those on average. So when he's averaging now 5, means he's probably getting the ball around the 4. So there's a lot of short routes he's getting hit on. He's not going to hit on long routes. So, yeah, the whole thing, where they're using him, has changed as well. But the other thing they also suggested is, remember when Brandon Ayuk was talked about being traded everywhere?
Yep.
One of the things they talked about was the Browns. The Browns point blank offered Cooper in a trade for Ayuk. And they were saying they wonder if he's kind of taken that to heart, and that's caused some issues for him mentally. I mean, we always say, like, oh, leave everything at home at that point there. That's they're people. He's a guy who's established now 3 years in Cleveland after, getting booted out of Dallas, booted out of Oakland. I almost said Las Vegas, but that was Oakland that time.
Yeah.
And he thinks he found a home here. I mean, they gave him more guaranteed money last offseason at that point to restructure his deal for him. So, I mean, he thought he found a long-term home. And then all of a sudden this offseason, they're like, yeah, let's give him up and get Brandon Ayuk here. Some people that does affect mentally. I'm not sure if he's that guy. I'm not going to sit there and say he is, but
it's hard to say, especially because his performance affects his future salary. Like, I mean, yes, that it affects you and I, but it's way different, especially in the NFL. Like, if he goes and drops down drastically the way he has in production, he could be looking at one of the highest paid, wide receivers out there, which is getting a stupid amount of money.
That would be a result of the issues he's having, but not necessarily a cause of it. And that's the thing that makes no sense, though. I mean, even Elijah Moore's got 53 yards in the season, and that's the guy that the Jets gave up on. Like, that's not good. I mean, the other thing you could wonder is Jerry Jeudy being added maybe causing some of the issues because he's got a second receiver that he's now competing with. Like, it was basically him and David Njoku at that point that were the two big names getting the ball at this point. But now Jerry Jeudy, 8 catches, 98 yards so far for the first two weeks there, had a touchdown. Didn't do much week 1, but had 73 yards against the Jags last week. Maybe that's part of the problem. The ball's getting spread out a little more.
So take Cooper's number and take Judy's numbers, put them together, and does it add up to the average of what you would think Cooper would be running? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, just about, yeah. I mean, 98 yards plus 27 yards at that point. It's 125
Who's the number 2 last year?
That's still not 1,200, but it's still not.
Who's the number 2 last year?
David Njoku. I mean, I know receiver-wise, they didn't really have a second receiver. David Njoku, the tight end, was their second receiving target. And he's out and has been out all year with an injury. So, I'm not sure what's going to happen as far as him. I don't think he's going to be playing this game. They haven't announced it fully yet, but it's kind of expected he won't be,
I think he's going to miss another one game after this. I think.
Well, he was in the first game with the Cowboys, but he left during the game, and he's got a high ankle sprain. So they're expecting 3 weeks or so he'll be out. So he'll probably be out this week, maybe 1 or 2 more weeks after that. But I mean, he's a guy who, had that kind of season last year. So I don't know. I feel like him not being there, but Jeudy being there should cancel each other out. I don't think that's what's going on Cooper. I don't know what it is. And that's the thing. Nobody seems to know. But it's something to keep an eye on, Giants fans, because Cooper has a history of playing very well. He's got a career of it. I mean, the guy's 30 years old. He's not his second year in the league. But that age is one of the things they're questioning as well. But I don't think he's going to have that steep of a drop at age 30. That's a huge drop to have at that point if he does.
Especially like how well he's played.
Yeah.
From when he came into the NFL. Like, he's been like that solid dude that we'll get you to 10 plus yards, closer to 14, 15, like you were saying.
Yeah. Maybe he's nursing an injury that they haven't announced because he hasn't announced it. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I just feel like something's going on. Maybe. That's for sure. In the running game wise, obviously we said Nick Chubb is no longer playing for the Browns there still because of the injury from last season. So we got Jerome Ford as their kind of the top guy there. 19 carries on the year, 108 yards on the season. That's a 5.7 yards per carry average with 1 touchdown. He did play much better against the Jags, where he had 9.1 yards per carry than the Cowboys, where he had 3.7. Deonta Foreman, remember him from his days with the Panthers there. He had a really good season with them a couple of years ago. Missed the first game against the Cowboys last week, had 14 carries, 42 yards, so 3.0 yards per carry average. So that's definitely not good. So, but this offense looks bad, guys. This offense looks really bad. The only stats that this offense looks good on is 4th down, where they're 75%, and red zone percentage, where they're still at 100%.
Well,
but it doesn't take a huge to figure out 100% red zone percentage, and you're scoring less than 20 points in a game. Means you're not getting to the red zone very often.
I was about to say, when you're not in the red zone that often, and you have the opportunity to win 2 games, so whatever, twice in 2 games, you're there, you score 3 times, whatever it is, and you score. That's not saying much. And when you
it's still a tough score when you get there. You're just not getting there very often.
You're right, and it's also 75% on the 4th down. Well, you constantly have to go for 4th down.
Well, no, they're not
to
going
convert.
that constant.
Well, if you're down constantly, like listen, when you're down against
game, yeah.
when you're getting, as I say, when you're talking about we're talking about Deshaun Watson being sacked 8 times so far in 2 games, and 6 of them come from week 1.
Yeah, week
Dallas.
1, week 2 is a completely
So,
different game because of the way
that's what I'm saying.
work.
So like you constantly are down in week 1, and you have to make up for it.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Here's an interesting stat, though. By the way, we talked about the offense kind of failing and the issue with Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper has dropped 2 touchdowns so far, won each of the 2 games. They were both in longer plays. See, Rob was so upset by that he left. That's how upset Rob was over that. So let's get into the Browns defense, because that's their bread and butter. That's what they're known for. That's the thing that makes them at all a difficult team to face. Let's be honest here, the way things are going. But the big question right now is which defense is going to show up this week? Is it the one that gave up 33 points to the Cowboys? Or is it the one that allowed just 18 to the Jaguars? It's a big difference, guys. You know, that's almost twice as much points week 1. The big thing is that Giants have to be able to run the ball to be successful this week. You know, the opponents are running 40% of their plays and averaging 5 yards per carry. That's 26th best in the worst in the league there, averaging 5 yards a carry. They're also allowing 114.5 yards per game rushing the ball. That's 14th in the league. So they're not very good at stopping the run, especially not compared to how they are against the pass. Because in the pass, they're 53.23 completion percentage is what quarterbacks have against them right now. It's best in the NFL. They're allowing just 5.8 yards per carry. Yards per pass, which is 8th best in the NFL. And on the sacks, they're sacking the quarterback on 10.14% of passing plays. That's 7th best in the NFL, guys. This is a legit defense on the passing side. They're more average on the run. So this is going to be a real test, guys, for this offensive line. But we've talked about the fact this offensive line has been much better the first 2 weeks here. You know, obviously they look great against the Commanders. They look solid. I wouldn't say great, but solid at least against the Vikings there. This defensive line is a defensive line that is a true test. Myles Garrett, even though he is nursing an injury right now, he's still playing 2/3 of the snaps he played last week against the Jaguars there. You know, he obviously leads that defensive line. They got Alex Wright as well. They got ex-Giant Dalvin Tomlinson. So, you know, I think we know what he can do, obviously, from his days with the Giants there. You know, this is a test because we're going to have to try to keep 2 things going here to have success. A run game, which obviously directly involves the offensive line for blocking and creating holes at that point there. But also, we got to keep Daniel Jones on his feet with some time. That's going to be a test with this defensive line, guys. It's really going to be a test. The secondary for them is also very good. They got a lot of quality corners. Denzel Ward, who's got a 77 PFF grade here so far in the season. He's also, though, nursing an injury. Notice a theme here, guys. There's a lot of injuries on this Browns team right now. So, Emerson Jr., who Emerson and Ward were one of the best corner duos in all of football last year. Now, Emerson's had a little bit of an off start to the year. There's got a 51.6 PFF grade. So that's not very good. So you have to kind of keep an eye and see what goes on there. Greg Newsom, the second, is their slot corner. He's got a 72.4 PFF grade. Now, he's also coming off of an off-season surgery, and I've heard a couple of Browns fans talking about the fact that he's a little bit off. He had a massive touchdown to Brian Thomas Jr. there, Malik Neighbors, his fellow LSU Tiger there during the Jaguars game. But the big one I'm curious about is if Denzel Ward is healthy, guys, I'm curious to see what Malik Neighbors does against him. This is probably not going to be a 10-catch, 120-yard kind of performance by him. And if it is, it's probably because Ward's not playing. This is a legit corner. This is probably the best corner he's faced so far. Again, assuming Ward's playing and healthy. We'll have to see how that goes as the week progresses there. But I'm very curious to see how that is. But I'm telling you right now, if you want to beat this defense, you got to run the ball. You got to keep running the ball. You got to shove that ball down the throat, basically.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a give dead airspace because like I'm trying to think about like week one against Cowboys because like there was a lot of just bad plays where the corner room was injured and then they just threw against them. Like obviously that makes sense, but
that was their own mistakes. That was their own mistakes. I'm telling you, the Browns beat themselves up much. If you watch that tape, actually, the Browns beat themselves up much more than the Cowboys beat him in that case. And that's not trying to take a win away from the Cowboys as much as I hate them. The Cowboys were the better team, but the Cowboys did not play great against the Browns. The Browns just kept on messing up and letting them look much better than they actually were.
The Browns were D- and the Cowboys in that game were probably a B- in that game.
Yeah. But the defense, that's the problem, is the defense was that bend but don't break kind of style. And much like us last week against the Commanders, they kept on bending too much. And they were letting them get into field goal range at that point. Obviously, getting bad field position because of a couple of interceptions didn't help them either at that point. But again, nobody has really gone off of them. I don't expect that. I don't expect anybody to go off on them. And I think that's unfair to expect at that point. But what we have to do is just get what we can get out of this defense and hold tight on, on our defense there at that point. So
I'm also going to say, like, let's be happy we're playing in September because like look at last year. The Browns, a lot of NFL fans talked about the Browns not being as good as they were. Yeah. And guess what happened?
They got better.
The fourth string quarterback, and they went on a late run, and they play good football, and they still have the opportunity to do the same thing this year. And
it probably will, honestly, because a lot of their issues right now are injuries. And I mean, again, all their offensive linemen, their big name offensive linemen, especially at tackle position, are battling injuries. They got injuries in the secondary, guys overcoming offseason surgeries in the secondary. Myles Garrett has been battling an injury at that point. I mean, there's injuries everywhere. Nick Chubb's still not playing. If you're going to play the Browns, we want to play him this year, at least early on the season. So we're playing him at the proper time, that's for sure. So let's get into the keys to victory, because there's a couple of things here that are really key to getting that victory. The first one is
like early time to play him.
Well, besides that, first one is the Giants have to play smart. The Browns have had 25 penalties in the first two games, guys. Deshaun Watson has thrown 2 picks in that first game. So considering how bad the Browns offense is, the Giants should play somewhat conservative. And it's going to sound weird me saying that, because I'm usually the one saying throw the goddamn ball down the field. But in this case, play conservative and take the opportunities the Browns are giving you, because the Browns are going to give you opportunities. They're going to get penalties against them. They're going to potentially give you up the ball at that point to you when they're not supposed to. They're going to potentially have issues with, guys being, out of position or pass interference calls. That's going to help you along the way. If you try to go big on this defense, guys, I'm telling you right now, and this is not me trying to be rude about Daniel Jones, he doesn't have the ability to beat this defense. And what I mean by that is he has to try to let the Browns beat themselves.
And you're not wrong. And what they need to do, and what you're also alluding to as well, is run.
Well, let's hold on. That's point number 3. You're skipping.
Right. Well, there's no notice update. I'm going with what I got here.
There is a note update.
I will show everyone here. There's no note update.
I'm looking right at it. Point number 2. The Giants' new offensive line, like I said, has a huge test. And they have to succeed against a very good defensive line, guys. They have to win this battle. If they don't win this battle and the defensive line keeps getting the backfield, it's going to be a very long day for Giants fans. because that means Daniel Jones is under duress when he makes mistakes when he's under duress. That means that we're going to have trouble running the ball. This offensive line, we're going to find out how good they are this week. We're going to find out really for sure in this time. But I'm actually somewhat confident in the offensive line. It sounds weird. Does that sound weird? It sounds weird.
It sounds weird for us to say. Like, listen, we have not had a pocket in 10 years. We've had a pocket for the past 2 weeks. So if our pocket collapsed within 2.6 seconds, like, we did our job against the Browns. Like, as crazy as that sounds, like, this was like the defense we would go against, and right away, Daniel Jones would get sacked. It's like one of those games where Daniel Jones would be sacked 8-9 times a game.
I'm telling you right now, if you had given me this game last week, all I see is white light.
I know.
Just refresh it. It's there. I don't know what to tell you, but we'll figure that out later when we're off the show.
I've reset it 7 times.
But if you told me last year that we weren't going to be able, we were going to play the Browns, I would have no confidence. But the way this line's playing, I'm not saying I have confidence in this game, but I have confidence this line will hold their own. This game we'll get to. We'll get to the game because it is time right now to give those picks after one more key of the victory, which is what you're alluding to before. The run. We got to run. We got to run, and we got to run. Devin Singletary
run away.
Really great week 2 after not doing much in week 1. He has to repeat last week's performance to take the pressure off Daniel Jones. It would also be nice if we could see some production from the backup running backs as well. This would be nice. I think it's asking probably too much. The Giants, for some reason, they're not giving backup running backs much of a chance to do anything.
I mean, that's their MO. They haven't done that.
I thought that would change when Saquon was gone, though.
Yeah,
I thought it was a Saquon thing is why. Like, we got a bell cow. Let's make him a bell cow. Well, we don't have a bell cow. I mean, no offense to Singletary. Yeah. He's a good running back, but he's not Saquon.
Yeah.
Not just because he catches the ball in important third down scenarios. Taking a shot.
I mean, all right, so let's break down the defensive line. All right, so we played against the Vikings week 1, and let's be real. Like, their defensive line has held the line. They dug the trenches, and they were good. Granted, they didn't have to play CMC week 2, but Jordan Madison had a great week 1. His replacement did absolute garbage, if you will, week 2. Talking about the Vikings. We played the Vikings week 1.
Okay.
The defensive line has been stopping the run. So Singletary not having a great game week 1.
I got you. You're saying the Vikings are the reason why he didn't have a good game because they stopped the running back for the.
I'm not saying that's part of the reason, but yes, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean the Commanders also did a good job against the Buccaneers week 1. So I mean, I honestly think Singletary just had a bad game, but he can't have a bad game here. Is what I'm saying. We got to figure it out.
Yeah,
we got to get the ball going at that point because if we're going to count on Daniel Jones to pass against this secondary with this defensive line, we're going to be in trouble. He cannot be doing like where he's doing like 40 passes in a game. Where that means the Giants are down. We're trying to come back, and we'll probably just get further and further down just based on the way he's been playing. So,
I mean, we need a 22-man setup. Is what we need.
Yeah, having 22. Nice.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Nice amount of players.
2 tight ends, 2 running backs. Like that's come on.
No, I mean, I think you'll probably see that. You'll probably see that kind of formation a lot more often. I think you'll see, help for the offensive line against his defensive line. I think you might finally see, because we didn't see, Jacob last week, the fullback, popping in really too much. I think we're going to probably see some of that. I'm telling you right now, I think if I can see the look of the stats and figure out that the that the Browns are really good against the pass and average against the run. The Giants also know that. It's not like I have some secret addition to these stats that nobody else can see at that point. So, I mean, I think they'll try to run the ball. But if they're not successful, they're going to have to pivot. And that's what's going to be a little scary if they have to pivot. So,
yeah.
Let's get into our predictions for the game here, guys. So, as we talk about this game here, and we'll get into all our picks for all the games here next week here, but as we record this here on Wednesday night, the Browns are a 6.5-point favorite, and the over-under is 38.5. So they're definitely not expecting a close game, and they're definitely not expecting a blowout offensively by anybody. I'm going to say this. I think we lose this game still. I really do, but I think we're going to lose a close game. And that's my gut feeling is we're going to lose a close game, which I know sounds, pretty bad considering what's happened the last, 2 weeks here, especially last week. But I really think we're going 0-3 here. The negativity has just gotten me.
You got bit by that bug because you know what? I was riding that terrible train that you were talking about, but I think the Giants win this game. I think they're going to squeak out and do right. Like, I just think there's enough injuries on the Browns. They have been doing the roller coaster for the past couple of years, in September into October, and playing better November, December football. That we're playing them at the right time. We are also coming off a terrible loss where we should have won. Let's be real. And I don't think the Browns, their offense is that much better than the Commanders' offense.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Browns' offense and the Commanders' offense, I think the Browns' offense is better on paper, but the Commanders have been doing similar output-wise at that point. That's the difference. Yeah. But I'm telling you right now, if we keep letting them go into the red zone, and we kept letting the Commanders do last week, we're going to be screwed because they actually have been good in the red zone.
100%. So I'm going to take the Giants to win.
All right, you're a brave man there. So next episode here tomorrow night, guys, we're going to give you all of our picks. Like I said, for all of the NFL games here coming on this week. So we're going to give you all the picks, all who is going to win, our over-unders, our spread picks there at that point for literally every single game here, guys. So as always, if you haven't already, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that share button, hit that thumbs up. Like I said, it really does help us a lot there. We'll be back again tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and of course, Rob's favorite,
LinkedIn
profile. We are also live on Instagram. Sometimes remember to put it up because Instagram is a whole process that I forget half the time to put up. So follow us on there as well. And always, we are available the next morning, 5 a.m. Eastern. Usually goes up there for all the audio podcast listeners there. That is Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, all the big ones there. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the
subscriber page.
Oh yes, go ahead and also give us a review, especially on Apple. It really does help out there. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night. We go over all those games. Appreciate you guys for listening, and as always, Giant fans, go G-Man!
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.
Please, I'm begging you. Please subscribe.